back with The Film Detective, and we're focusing on our upcoming DVD Blu-ray release of a sci-fi drive-in classic, The Brain from Planet Arous. I am joined today by one of the stars of that movie, Joyce Meadows. Thank you for joining us, Joyce.
You're welcome.
And we're also joined by David Schecter, a film buff and a friend of Joyce's, who made a contribution to the new Blu-ray, directed a short film with Joyce that will be a DVD extra. And I had a chance to look at it a couple of weeks ago. Very, very cute, very funny. And we'll talk about that later on. Joyce, I want to start with you. You were from Canada, is that right?
That's right, Alberta.
Alberta, Canada.
Alberta.
Somehow you became Miss Hollywood, 1954. Is that correct?
Yes. Before that, there was Miss Sacramento.
You were just
1953. It was.
you were tearing up the West Coast.
I don't know. Yeah. I won the talent in both parts.
What was the talent?
Singing at that point, and then I got invited back that you usually do, to bring in the next person that won the following year, and then I did some acting, a monologue in front of that was part of my entertainment, because I am basically an actor who sings, so.
And then somehow, shortly after your coronation as Miss Hollywood, you had been in a few films. Then what? You got the call to be in The Brain from Planet Arous?
Yes, I had done a few television shows, and in, I think it was Dr. Christian, I met Jack Marquette, and he brought up The Brain from Planet Arous because he was the producer of it, or the cameraman, and it was his idea in the beginning, and he offered me the role. I didn't audition or anything. He saw some of my work on TV, and I accepted the role.
And that was that. He thought he thought you would look good against the giant brain. You didn't even have to do an audition.
I had no idea that it was going to be that at the time, so.
Now, in a movie like that, it's kind of campy. It's giant brains floating around and a menace from outer space. And when you're making a movie like that, what is the attitude like during the production? Are people having fun, or are they thinking, what have we got ourselves into? What is the attitude while you were making that movie?
I think that we just committed to it, basically. Mm-hmm. I was a greenhorn. I totally committed to it, as an actor. And it was something that we went for. We only had a certain amount of time, Don, and we did the best we could with the time we had. And some of the scenes were long. And they were worried about that because I was not in front of the camera that long, about if I'd remember the dialogue. And I had just come from Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare. I had done Shakespeare. I did stage productions of other Tennessee Williams and so on. So I couldn't figure out why in the world they were concerned about 5-page dialogue all at once. So anyway, everybody was, as far as I remember, everybody just got themselves committed to it, because I think that's what made it alive and funny, or campy, or however you want to put it,
Can I jump in for a second here? Something that defines Joyce, as well as why I think The Brain stands above a lot of the other low budget movies of that era, is when she talks about committed, one question I asked Joyce was, fans always want to know, what was the brain made of? You know, was it a balloon? Was it a fiberglass prop? That it certainly wasn't remote controlled, whatever, but what was it made of? And Joyce is, you know, physically encountering it at certain points of the movie. And when I asked her how it was operated, what it was made of, she said, I have no idea. I didn't want to see it because to me, it wasn't a prop or a special effect. It was an actual killer alien.
Yeah.
And if I had known that it was a prop or treated it that way, I wouldn't have been able to play it properly. And the three main actors like Robert Fuller and John Agar and Joyce, they play this really seriously. And yeah, it's campy. It's a floating brain, but the acting is really superb in the movie because nobody's looking down on it.
Well, we never saw it until we were confronted with it, you know, and ahead of time as Joyce Meadows, you know. I didn't want to see it until I was first confronted with it, which was in the cave.
Earthlings.
Who? What are you?
I think that is one of the reasons why I like the movie is just that brain itself. It is kind of menacing, and he's kind of dirty in a way. He's got kind of a dirty mind from outer space.
I know.
It's those bedroom eyes. You know, he's got them.
Well, you know, all of the movies that hold up from that era, they always have the one striking image that we remember, you know, whether it's a giant tarantula coming over the desert, you know, or you know, in this case, a giant brain sort of floating through a cave, or you know, now I'm thinking of Michael Landon and I Was a Teenage Werewolf, you know, just that image of him in the werewolf makeup. There's always that one striking image that for me, and I'm sure other fans too, that's the image that grabs onto us and makes us love a movie, makes us remember it forever.
What is it, Steve?
Other movies from that period, some of the bigger budget things that were, you know, the big events of the day, they didn't have that strong image that lasted in our memories.
No, because they could do so much more with the computers than they did. But Dawn, you know, I had to hang on to that image. That's what I did as an actor when the brain was in John. And John was a different person, and he wasn't that person. He wasn't my fiance anymore. He was this horrible brain that I had encountered, and I hung on to that image when the brain was in John, and that's why I could respond to John the way I did, you know, when he was being obsessed with the brain. Yeah, so
like when he ripped Joyce's blouse off, which was an indelible image for me growing up. Joyce, you should tell him about that scene and John's reaction to that when he got a little too romantic with you.
oh, well, he was such a gentleman, you know. He was basically he goes, oh, I'm sorry, did I really rip it? Did I, you know, was it too much? You know, he's whispering to me, you know. And I said, no. And if you did rip it, then we'll have to repair it. That's all, you know, and so on. But in the beginning, he said, I don't know quite what I'm going to do. I said, well, just be possessed, John, and then let that move you. And I don't know if that's what he did or not. But anyway, whatever he did, I think it worked.
Well, you're different.
I don't know what you mean, different. I'm still the same old lovable character I always was. Excuse me, Sally.
You know, we're talking about John Agar, and
His character in the Steve.
Yeah.
Steve March.
I know John Agar did a lot of different movies. He did Westerns, he did war movies, he did dramas. But when I think of him, he's always being chased by a giant bug or something, or the creature from the Black Lagoon. He did a good amount of those kind of thrillers. I wonder, he was already a veteran of those movies when he made The Brain.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, did he ever give you any advice on how to act in, opposite the brain?
No, because he knew better. He was John played John a lot, no matter what characters he was in, and in talking to each other, he found out this enormous theater background that I had already had, and he I don't think he wanted to infringe on that. And basically, Don, actors don't tell other actors what to do unless they ask. We just don't. And there was a director on the set, and I'm very I'm very specific about that. I listen to the director. I work with the director. I don't want any other comments, other than what the director gives me. And that's a thing that you work with a director and creating the character and making the scene come alive. And to me, that's who I listen to. And if an actor breaks that and starts giving advice, I cancel it out usually.
Well, he figured you had been in Romeo and Juliet, so you could handle the giant
I don't know,
brain.
but he saw my resume, and he was such a sweetheart, though, such a sweetheart. I mean, that movie that with John Wayne that introduced him, when he was just a munchkin. He was so young, just out of the service, So
I think the appeal of John in a lot of cases was he had this everyman quality.
That's right.
And I think that's why he was in a lot of the monster movies too, because you connected with him. There was a decentness to him, which I think Joyce would admit that was a part of who John was. He was projecting his own personality more than he was a technical craftsman.
Well, he was, he had a natural way about him in front of the camera. It was a gift. It really was. It was just a natural, way. And I did memorabilias with him and enjoyed him throughout the years before he passed away. Several memorabilias we did together.
Yeah, I think viewers of the Film Detective, our movie app, are probably big fans of John Agar. We've seen a lot of his movies over the years.
I imagine you have,
Yeah. Now, here's a rumor, and I want you to either put it to rest or think about it. The director was Nathan Duran. On the film, he goes by Nathan Hertz. And I heard that he didn't want his name associated with this film. So he put a different name in the credits.
I know.
That's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or if it's just Hollywood folklore. Have you ever heard anything like that?
I've heard about it, but not during the movie.
Mm-hmm.
and several years after we did it, and I was just naive enough. I whatever name he was calling himself, I worked with him, and I heard the rumor, but to be honest with you, I never found out if it was true or not. I never did.
He could have had something. I'm sorry.
It's too bad if that's what he thought, because I think he would be reneging that today. And,
Yeah, there was a period of time where directors were working so often that they would sometimes use a fake name.
That's right.
Just so it didn't seem like, oh, this guy again,
That too. So I don't really know exactly.
David,
Like
did
I
you,
said, I'm ignorant as far as giving you definite information about that, Don. I really am.
David,
Don,
did you have something?
Yeah, Don, I agree with you. It could have had something to do with maybe he had a contract with somebody else, a promise of this, that, or the other thing. But you know, if you look at his resume, he did a lot of good stuff. But The Brain was by no means like a standout bad film. For you know, he made good films, bad films, and indifferent films. I just I don't buy that at all.
Oh,
Now, David, do you remember the first time you saw The Brain?
Yes, I remember watching Joyce's blouse get ripped as a little boy and thinking, you know, when I grow up, I want to get taken over by a giant brain so I can.
So you can have the excuse to attack
Yeah.
girls.
Exactly.
Now, did you see it? Did you see it on TV, on like a creature feature type thing on a Saturday afternoon, or did you see it at a theater, or how did you see it?
Well, they were never in the afternoon. I grew up back east New Jersey, so the New York area, it would be the late show or the big show or Supernatural Theater. A lot of times those movies were on at like 1:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning on a school night. And there's no way I was going to miss something like that with a title like that. So, but back then, you know, you would see the movie, you would love it. And then you had to wait sometimes like a year to see it again.
Right, right.
do you
And
know? Oh, go ahead, Don.
Oh,
Excuse me.
I was going to say, you would always try to find those magazines like Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Yeah.
And you would read every bit of information you could, you know, and you were never sure if what you were reading was accurate or not. What were you going to say, Joyce?
Oh, there was a letter I got, and I moved around a lot, and I still haven't found it. I don't know if I ever will, but it came from Stephen King, and he saw it, and he wrote me a letter. He says, when I was a kid and I saw that movie, it's the one that inspired me to start writing the way I start writing and doing, and you know, creating characters and stuff like that that he's written. I was so impressed, Stephen. You know, wow. You
I
know,
have heard that. I've heard that.
have you heard that?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I, you know, how stupid of me not to keep, you know, I don't know what happened. I've got a drawer full of fan mail that goes on forever, and it's nowhere to be found in there. But I was kind of really impressed with my work that he was very complimentary. He said, you made me believe the brain was real. I think that's a basic statement he said, you know, so.
Yeah, I have heard that. And I was actually going to mention that, but you beat me to it.
I think
Cross
that might
off
give
my list.
I think that might give Joyce maybe the right to some of his royalties for all of the books he sold over the years, inspired by you.
Oh, well, he was inspired, but I don't know. I think that's as far as it goes. You know, but
Now,
I was impressed.
Joyce, there's a funny story I read, and I'm going to give you a chance to tell it, about a movie poster that you wanted to buy of the movie. Do you remember this story?
If it's the same story, yeah. There was a big poster of the Brain from Planet Arrows. And it was in New York. So I got in contact with whoever was selling it. And I introduced myself and I said, how much would I have to pay for it? Is this the story you're thinking of?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. He says, you certainly can. It'll cost you $600. And I said, what are you talking about? The movie didn't cost too much more than that. You know, that was the statement I made to him. I refused to pay him $600 for a poster. And I thanked him and hung up.
Well,
That's the story.
You can probably find a reproduction for a lot
And
cheaper.
Joyce, you should have bought it because it's worth a lot more than that today.
Oh, really? Well, this was quite a while ago. David. I mean, a number of years ago.
I didn't know that story. That's funny.
So
Yeah, those New York,
me and my big mouth, you know.
those New York poster stores. I've been to a few of them. They're fascinating because I used to love lobby cards and the posters and 8x10s. I was fascinated by all of that stuff. And there was one, I don't think it exists anymore. It was called Movie Star News. And it was shut down a long time ago. But I used to go there in the 80s and 90s. And I was fascinated by all of that stuff. I wonder if that was the store. Could have been. Movie Star News. Trying to get Joyce.
Yeah, that's
open up
funny how that, you know, whoever had that poster must have shared that story then, because I sure didn't tell anybody else.
Well, I have my ways.
Oh. Okay.
My ways.
Okay.
Now, Joyce, I have to talk about some other aspects of your resume. I was very impressed. You did a lot of
My resume, I should keep.
great television in the 60s. And that's a period that I really like, that the whole Alfred Hitchcock, Perry Mason, that period. You acted on both of those shows and a bunch of others. What are some of your memories that really stand out from that period, that early 60s, mid 60s period?
Well, the first thing that's coming to me, besides other things, during that period and in the late 50s, early 60s, and so on, the leads were 1 and 2 people. When you think about it, like 77 Sunset Strip had a little more. Perry Mason had 3 or 4, but the casts were small. So in order to have a story, you had to bring in actors to play the leads, right? And I started out auditioning for leads, and I was able to be cast in them. And you had a wonderful opportunity to play a lot of good roles that were the particular lead in that particular segment of the show. As of today, when there's 10, 12 people, if you hire somebody from the outside, they've got 5 and under lines or something like that for the most part, because they've got to use all those actors because they've got them under contract. So a working actor doesn't get the roles that I used to audition for during that period. So I had an opportunity to play some wonderful, wonderful roles, even in the Westerns, you know, all the Westerns I did.
What was interesting too, I thought, was that it seemed they would bring you back.
Yeah.
You did, 4 or 5 shots on Perry Mason, 4 or 5 shots on Alfred Hitchcock. So they brought you back. It wasn't just, one and done. They brought you back. That must have been great.
I know, and I didn't even have to audition. They called up and they said, we have this role we think Joyce could do. Is she available? But sometimes I would go and do a part that wasn't the main lead invited that week in order to get my foot in the door and do a good job of the smaller part. And then I got called back for a lead or something like that, So my agent was very, he told me, he said, if you've got a nice little spot in the show, I think you should do it, because then they'll see your work and you'll do a good job and they'll call you back.
Shame on them.
I didn't know that was on. I better
Joyce,
turn it off.
That was Stephen King.
Exactly.
Oh,
Joyce,
yeah.
Didn't they also?
It came from
sometimes-
Oklahoma. I don't know if it was Stephen King. This sounds like say, okay, it's off now.
Joyce, didn't they sometimes also say, yeah, I know we have a role for you. It's not that big, but if you do it, we'll get you a bigger role down the line.
Well, they could call you back for a lead role if, if when you do a good job, they'll call you back. There were several shows, and the one that comes in mind, because I think it was the smallest part, was in Roy Calhoun's A Texan. And then I was called back for another, and I was the main lead. They had called me back. I had to audition again, I think, for that, but it didn't matter. I got the role. And so sometimes, to get your foot in the door, that's what you did. So
I always thought it was interesting if, because I watch a lot of old shows like Dragnet. And a lot of times you'll see the same actor from week to week getting killed or, arrested or something. And I always wondered, did the producers not care that the audience at home might remember this guy from week to week?
Well, it kind of depends on the show. Dragnet was a weird thing. I never had an opportunity to audition for it, but I wasn't that concerned about it. It was a strange production company. I often wondered why they weren't a little more careful about that myself, because what few of them I saw, the same person was getting killed, and then he'd be getting killed again, and so on. So I don't know.
On Alfred Hitchcock. On Alfred Hitchcock, you would, a lot of stars, they'd be in the season 1 episode and the season 2 episode and the season 3, and they just, I don't think they worried about that back then. So many of the actors would appear like you in every single Western. So, pretty much every single actor in Hollywood was in every single Western for a while there.
Well, that's true. But, they could have, sometimes some of them will spread it apart, David, if you get killed, and a lot of times the fans always always remark about how different all of my characters were. Some say, they said, if I didn't see Joyce Meadows at the end of the show, I didn't know it was you, because it was wonderful how you could play these, the fans are very complimentary, Don. If you ever get depressed, you open the door and pull out a fan letter, and it really makes you feel good.
I don't get many fan letters, so I'll take your word for it.
I'll write you one if you write me one.
Oh, thanks. Now, I know you took a break from acting on TV. I don't know if you were doing stage work or what you were doing, but you returned to TV in the 90s, and you did a lot of work once again in the 90s. And you had mentioned there was a difference in that the older shows had smaller, tighter casts, and the later shows had these enormous casts that were the focus.
That's right.
Were there other differences you noticed between working in the 60s, say, and when you came back in the 90s? Was there a big difference in TV production during that span?
Oh, I'm glad you said TV productions. One of the things that shocked me is prior, you go in, you'd audition for the casting director. He'd call you up, and you'd audition for the casting director, and they said, "Come on, I want you to meet the director and the producer," and you'd meet them, and the casting director would give his opinion, I guess, and then you'd get a call and you'd do the show, boom, 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 like that. Well, I come back, you meet the casting director, and then you go home, you get a call, you've got a call back for this show. I said, I got a what? He says, a call back for, the agent said, for the show that you audition for. Okay, you go there, and then you audition for the casting director again. And then you go home, and then you get another call, and they say, the director would like you to come, you're, what is it they referred to? You're one of the three, oh, I don't know, they had a term. They bring you back the third time, and now you're reading for the director. Now, okay, if you had a big lead and they wanted to make sure, but the cast is big, so you've got a nice little segment in the show. Do they call, before they called in 5 people they thought would do it. In the 90s, I go in there on the callback and there's 15 actors in there on the callback. And everything was such a long process. And it's, and the traffic now in LA is 10 times worse than it was back then. And you go back and forth before you knew whether you had the role or not. And it was like, sometimes it was just one scene. Now, why couldn't they make up their mind right then and there? Because you were a professional actor. But I guess they had to put all those people to work. I don't know, behind the cameras, because you kept meeting other people behind the cameras all the time. And that was a big adjustment for me to make, because I came from the old school, where you went in and you either did a good job and you got the role, or somebody else did a better job, and and one of the big things in film, of course, and TV, was you had to stay above the rejections that you got. There were many shows I auditioned for I did not get, and many I did, but the rejections sometimes were quite hard, especially if you liked the role and you really wanted to do it. The rejections were hard, and but you kept going, and kept doing it. But I think that's one of the big things.
So it's there were a lot more hoops to jump through in the 90s.
And more people, and more actors. I thought, why do they need 20 actors for one scene? These are all the adjustments.
Was this for Punky Brewster?
Oh yeah, that went on with Punky Brewster. It sure did, and I know I had fun with that.
That was a popular show.
I was amazed how popular it was. But David, I played a librarian in the Punky Brewster show, in case you didn't see it. Only she was hip. She had a motorcycle that she.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Oh, you remember now? Okay. Yeah.
And you also did some daytime dramas, what we used to call soap operas. I don't think we call them soap operas anymore.
Oh, you don't?
I don't think that term has the same relevance as it used.
Thank you for telling me, because I still call them soaps. Well, I'll have to remember.
I do too, but I can't remember the last time I actually saw a commercial for soap. I think gradually that term has become kind of old-fashioned. I think now they're called daytime dramas.
That's a lot better. That's a lot better. Yeah. I had a 5-parter on Days of Our Lives, where I played a warden, but she was not like one who flew over the cuckoo's nest. She was a good warden. But it was 5 times I had to be on there. Yeah, that was interesting.
Well, I thought it was really interesting that, in that first part of your career, you were always on the top flight programs, Wagon Train, Sunset Strip. You were on those really iconic kind of programs.
Yeah.
And in a way, Punky Brewster and Days of Our Lives, those were also top flight shows that everybody knows about. You always landed on those big programs.
Yeah.
Now,
maybe because they wanted actors.
Now I have to ask you about 2 other movies. One of them, you had an uncredited part Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Okay, I'll give you that story very fast. Agent calls one day and says, I have a proposition. Oh, golly. You know, the director on that show. The
Blake
famous
Edwards.
Blake Edwards.
Blake Edwards, excuse me, how can you forget? He had called agents and said, I want to do a party and I don't want extras. I want actors so I can throw out an idea and make an improv. And so the agent calls, and I guess other agents. So he presents the thing to me. He says, you'll be working a week. It should be a lot of fun. Why don't you do, and other actors will be on it. So I agreed. I thought, why not? So I went, we spent a week. There were other actors, and Blake Edwards would do, you know, throw out an idea, and all of us actors would, you know, we all just jumped in and did what in the acting schools are called improvs. You've heard of that term. So, and that's how we did it. And he, at one point, he told George Papard to pinch me in my dairy area, you know, and I, of course, reacted to that. And then, of course, the actual dialogue came with Audrey Hepburn. That was, you know, that was actual dialogue. But that got labeled as one of the most fun parties. I've heard people say that or write about it, say that was the greatest party that I've ever seen on film, you know, and so on. So that's how that happened, Don.
I think it is one of the best party scenes. I put it up there with the party in Midnight Cowboy. It was a little different, a little
yeah, a little different,
little more degenerate.
Yeah.
In Cowboy. But if I could be at two movie parties, those are the two I'd want to be.
Those are two you'd be at. Yeah. Well, it was fun, and Blake Edwards was wonderful, and it was a opportunity to hang around a great, you know, icon, Audrey Hepburn, who is just a fantastic person.
Was Mickey Rooney at that party?
Yeah.
Okay. He was
And then he played the Chinese.
He was the upstairs neighbor wearing the false teeth.
Yeah. A lot of his stuff was ad lib, I think, on that.
Now,
improv, I should say, not ad lib.
Along with Blake Edwards, you worked with another director I like, William Castle.
Oh, yeah.
A movie called I Saw What You Did. And
Yeah.
Joan Crawford was the star of that one. Tell us a little about that. I love that movie.
Well, if you want me to tell you about an experience watching Joan Crawford, she was one of the old movie stars, Don. And there were a few that if there was a younger person on the set, they would not show up until their scene was done and they were gone, and then they would come on. That's my experience with Joan Crawford. I never saw her. I never had a chance to meet her. They all weren't that way, but there were some that were like that. And the scene was done very technical, as far as copying Hitchcock's thing. And so I didn't really get involved or too much with the horror. It was an action, and I just let it happen as it happened. But it was an opportunity to play a nasty character, and I kind of thought that would be fun to play. I didn't get too many of those in the film. On stage, I've played some pretty nasty characters, but in film, no. And I enjoyed that. And it's become popular. Like I get fan mail of people that just go on and on about that film, you know?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you, Joyce?
No.
I haven't either. I wanted to watch it with her, and she says, "No, not gonna watch
I
it."
know. I didn't want to see myself all just chopped pieces or
You,
whatever.
you've
they did.
died in other movies, though.
Huh? Pardon
You've
me?
died, yeah, but usually when you die, it's off screen, so that's different.
Hey, I don't feel bad because Meryl Streep, when she played, what's the famous store? And she was the, the movie Meryl Streep made.
You mean the chef, Julia Child, or
Oh,
something?
no. The famous
Like
designer. What?
oh,
Yeah, the famous department store. I'll think of it in a minute. Where she played the real mean gal in there, a real
With
nasty.
Anne Hathaway?
Oh, and Anne Hathaway was in it. Yeah. I never shop in that store. This is it's so expensive. So I don't know. I'll think of it in a minute. But she said she never saw the movie because she didn't want to see herself being so mean and nasty.
Do you have any memories of William Castle, who directed I Saw What You Did?
I do. I thought that he was, to me, I got really in touch and being able to work with a big director. And he was so, I don't know, he was so into what you were doing and yet so open to let you to do your thing. And he was like he was under there supporting you. It's hard to express what I mean. It's like he was there. He was like a foundation, and you could go inside and just create and do things. I thought he was a wonderful director. I thought it would be wonderful to really have a role with him directing. I thought he was, I enjoyed every moment. And there was, I had other scenes, of course, and I just loved working with him.
Don,
Fascinated by his technique.
I'm working on a screenplay, which is kind of a jumping off from the Hollywood story. So are you familiar with that?
No.
It's one of his early movies, and it's really good. It's like
Okay.
a film noir mystery that takes place in Hollywood. Joyce and I are close friend with Julie Adams, and it was one of her early roles. But you definitely should seek it out. It's a terrific, I think 1952, and he directed it. And I think it's one of his finest movies.
I've seen a lot of William Castle's movies, but I'm not familiar with that one. That sounds pretty interesting, and I think you should watch I Saw What You Did, since it was such a good experience, and you have such praise for William Castle. I think you should watch it. I wanted to ask you about the autograph shows and the memorabilia shows that you've done over the years. Are you still doing them? They must have stopped for a while because of the coronavirus.
They did. Well, I haven't spent a career doing that too much. I think it was, when I was first asked by someone in the state of Virginia who contacted me, of which I ignored for a long time because I didn't know what he was talking about. And finally I answered and I said, "What's a memorabilia?" And that began the memorabilia shows, and I had to prepare. And then I met Dave. That's how David and I basically met and got started, really, is preparing for the memorabilia shows. And I had to prepare pictures, and what I always thought, I got invited for sci-fi and also monster. And I mean, monster shows are really monster, and I couldn't figure out what was so monstrous about the Brain from Planet Arrows. I always thought it was more sci-fi than monster, but it opened up both doors, and sometimes the memorabilia were both. So you got to do them both. And I can't I can't tell you how wonderful it is to see people coming in with their kids and their families and just talking and they got their own cameras, they want to shoot pictures of you, and then walking up and paying money for your autograph and so on, and asking you all kinds of questions and things. They lasted at least 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, most of them. Yeah. And they were wonderful. They were wonderful to do. Now, since the pandemic, I haven't done any. The last one I did was in Philadelphia, and it was fantastic. Well, it's a big monster bash, it's called. And it's one of the biggest memorabilia, as I understand. And those people were wonderful. The people running it, and it's for me, it's been a really, I just show my pictures, and I have a few pinups, but
which are the most popular?
Selling that, I don't sell those, and as an actor, and so on and so forth. And I had a lot of people picking up the actor ones rather than the pinup ones.
I'm actually going to be contacting some of these shows to get them to show our little short film, because I think that would be fun at memorabilia shows. And then Joyce can talk about her career after that.
Now that is a good segue, because I wanted to ask about that short film. I believe it's being included in the Blu-ray. And I saw it recently. I thought it was nice. It was funny. Tell us about that.
Well, that's kind of you. Well, I thank you. I didn't know how you would respond to it. You never know.
No, I thought it was cute. I like how it was. It shot in the exact same location as
all over Chatsworth, all over those hills and rocks and everything. David went hunting locations for a week, I think, at least.
I think that some of the movie was shot in Chatsworth, not a lot of it. Like the scenes when they're talking about the plane wreck, I think that was shot on Mulholland Drive. But the problem was that originally I wanted to film it in front of Bronson Cave. And then I was dealing with the Hollywood red tape and the money and everything for the proper clearances and all that stuff. And it was like a nightmare. So I said, okay, what can we do? Because people are going to expect you to be shooting outside or inside Bronson Cave. But first of all, it was closed off because of the virus. They put a fence in front of it. So originally I was going to film this little thing with Joyce in front of the blocked off Bronson Cave. And I wrote like a half-a-page little intro to the film, which I thought would be kind of fun. And when I found out I couldn't use Bronson Cave, I had to figure out, okay, how can we justify the fact that we're not shooting there? So we came up with this scenario, and I filmed in very similar locations.
Where I played the two characters in Joyce and Sally.
Yeah, it looked good. Did Joyce agree to do it right away, or did you have to twist her arm a little bit?
Well, Joyce owes me money, so she owed me a number of favors. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. Well, originally I told her, okay, here's what it would be fun to do a little intro to the movie, so people see that and then they watch the movie. And she said, oh yeah, that would be kind of fun. Because we met doing Brain from Planet Arous when I was doing something related to the movie. So it was like perfect for us. And then being the writer that I am and not having an editor, when I started writing, my little, 3-line thing turned into a 13-minute mini production. And Joyce was a real trooper. I showed her the line. I said, Joyce, you have more lines in this than in like 10 of your guest starring roles combined. And it was like, oh my God, when she saw the stuff. But she was a real trooper, and she, either resigned.
Yeah, Don, he did give me a couple of weeks to become familiar with all that dialogue and to decide how I was going to do the two characters and things like that. So I had, before we shot, I did some homework on that and prepared myself, as actors do, and so, but I mean, he ran away with, well, he did do some cutting, a little bit of the dialogue, but anyway, we
Well, she
both
was
jumped
great
in and did it.
Joyce, Joyce, as she said, stark drama is what she loves. Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams, whatever. And to give Joyce the chance to just do some ridiculous stuff. And, she never once said, are you sure, David, what are going to, she just really threw herself into it and did whatever stupid thing I told her to do.
Don't these burgers look delicious?
And I think she had fun doing it because it was a different type of acting too. It was just.
Well, I stayed in character, Don, whichever character it was.
If she likes stark drama, that you can't get much starker than Bronson Cave.
That's
No.
true.
I wonder how many movies were filmed in that cave.
Oh, hundreds. They used that, and it was very easy to go up there in the early days. I mean, I don't know. So they, somebody got a hold of it and decided they're going to make a lot of money off of it or something. I don't know.
I think that's the documentary that needs to be made. Is Bronson Cave. When you think of all the monsters that have lived there, probably cowboys and gold miners who went in there, and
Oh yeah,
everything was shot there.
yeah.
About 10 years ago, I wanted to throw a party for Bronson Cave. And I got in touch with all sorts of actors and directors and people like Bird-Eye Gordon and everything who did all those monster movies, and Joyce and Colleen Gray and all these, Barbara Rush, all these Joyce, all these people that I knew. And I contacted Griffith Park, and we're actually going to make a go of this, where we were just going to have a big birthday party for Bronson Caves. And again, the red tape just overwhelmed everything. And how many fire marshals would have to be there, and it just kind of fizzled. But it's too bad because it deserves a big party.
Is there somebody who acts as if they own the cave? Is there sort of a keeper of the flame?
Keeper of the cave. It has something to do with, with the city of Los Angeles. They own it. And then there's a film department that is part of, that works with them and everything. And the tendrils, the political tendrils and everything just go all over the place.
Yeah, I thought maybe there was a hermit who lived in the cave, and you had to answer 3 riddles before you.
Exactly. The Hermit from Planet Arous. I think we have a sequel.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Sally out there still looking for brains. I thought I thought that was very, very clever of David to put that into writing. It opened up for a lot of ridiculous things. Call it my woman's intuition. That area looks suspiciously similar to where my dad and I encountered one of those extraterrestrial brains. I better go check it out.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a great extra for the DVD, I think.
Well, don't you think it'll be kind of different, too? They're expecting me to come on and say hello. This is, and I hope you enjoy it, and and so on and so forth.
Yeah, next thing you know, you're ready to be put in a padded cell.
Well, there seems to be 2 different audiences for these types of old drive-in movies. There are the people who really kind of like to just make fun of them, and you get a lot of that on Mystery Science Theater and programs like that. There are a lot of different offshoots of that. They just kind of poke fun at the low budget or some of the acting they make fun of. But yet there's another part of the audience that wants to buy all the movie posters. Wants to own all of the Blu-rays and DVDs, really loves the movie, can recite lines of dialogue from the movie. There are two types a fan.
Or Don, they shoot pictures. They take the camera and shoot a picture right off of the TV screen and send it to you to sign.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
I get a
Okay.
lot of that, especially with the brain.
That's hardcore. That's
I just got one the other day that's sitting on my table to mail, and it comes right off the TV screen. You can see it.
Mhm.
It's there where I'm screaming, and he's got the axe, and he's attacking the brain. Steve and Sally is in the background, being frightened and screaming and all that kind of jazz. And
You know, when for the Mystery Science Theater people and those, I always pose the question, have you ever tried to make a movie? It's really easy to poke fun at something when they had, $80,000 in 4 days and bad weather, etc.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You got a week to shoot it. You probably didn't get all the actors you wanted, so you had to hire, somebody's neighbor. There's a lot of that. I agree with you, David, because I'm a fan of those old movies, and my theory is that no one sets out to make a bad movie,
No.
or they, like Joyce said, they were all committed. They were all doing their best.
Yeah.
And not everything was going to be produced by Universal or Paramount or something. A lot of times you had to make do with a simple set and a small budget. So the fact that they got the movie made deserves applause, I think.
Well, you see, that all had to come under the unions.
Hmm.
And what is so wonderful today is that young people can go out and shoot a movie and just present it to a movie film festival, and people will see it and enjoy it, and they're learning their trade and everything. There was no way without the modern electronics that we have now that young people could learn. You had to join the union, and you couldn't join the union because they were pretty closed, young people. And today it's just wide open for them to learn their craft and to make movies if they're interested, in doing that. I have a granddaughter that's going to go to the University in New York, and the back of her mind is that she's going to make films. But you get, yes, there's lots of non-union being done. That's true. But what is really beautiful is young people get an opportunity to put a craft, whether they're writing it, whether they're acting in it, like Josh, who did the editing. Now there's a young man who went to college, and he has all this opportunity to be the editor, and he is a beautiful editor. And all the opportunities living in Texas that he's able to do to learn his craft, and I think that's what's wonderful that's happening in film today.
One thing that, like the foundation of, if you compare The Brain to a lot of other low budget monster movies at the time, as ludicrous as the premises about the giant floating brains, the script is very well written. The dialogue is believable under that situation, and the actors are terrific. So it has a level of believability within the ridiculousness of the premise.
Well, all sci-fis are ridiculous. I mean, who's going to meet E.T. pretty soon? And I stood in line for 2 hours to see E.T. I mean, oh, well.
And you also had a damn good dog in the picture.
Yeah,
George
tell us about that dog. Do you remember that dog?
Oh, do I ever? He and I got along beautifully. His trainer hardly talked. He just did, snap a finger or made some sounds, and that dog, those dogs are so smart anyway. And he was just a friendly German Shepherd, and you could hug him, and I thought he was beautiful. I took a picture of him, and I have it in my album. And he, in fact, I have a memorabilia picture with John and I on my wall, and the dog's in it. But what a beautiful dog, German Shepherd, and they're so smart. It was fun to watch him work, really.
Yeah, dogs can steal the show.
Yeah.
That's for sure. No
That's
matter
for
what
sure.
the movie is, the dog can always walk away with the scene.
Walk away, yeah.
In fact, on YouTube now, a lot of people have their own YouTube channels, and some of the most successful YouTube channels are just dogs. It's just clips of dogs
Doing things.
doing
Yeah.
funny things, yawning.
And I get them on, Google will bring that up every once in a while. I get a lot of stuff on Google. I love the astronomy, NASA, all of that.
Mhm.
And you know how Google is, when you become interested in something, as soon as you turn it on, you get a mass of your interest showing up. So it's animals and NASA and music and things like that pop up.
And brains
The
too. They're
brain.
going to start coming up even more than before, Joyce.
Well, we've been at this for about an hour, so I'm going to bring it to a close. David, thank you for being with us this afternoon. And very special thanks to Miss Hollywood, 1954, and one of the stars of the Brain from Planet Arous, soon available on Blu-ray and DVD, Joyce Meadows.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you so-
having us. Thank you for having me, Don.
It was a
Be
pleasure.
safe. Be safe.
It was very enjoyable, Don. Thank you so very, very much.
All right, we'll probably speak again soon, I'm sure. Thank you. And,
Okay. Well, it was sure nice to meet you.
oh, pleasure was mine. Pleasure was mine.
Okay.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank
too.
you. Ciao.